guys, welcome back to Escaping Reality. Today's video is going to be a beginner guide to reading the minor arcana in tarot. I actually had a completely different video filmed for today. I hope you can hear my neighbors having a good time. It was going to be a completely different video about how we're getting sued by the HOA and we might lose our chickens and our rabbits, but because we're going into a new moon, I decided to refresh my energy, let things go. It's really good to let things go during the new moon period. And so I decided I'm going to take these notes that I have been working on, which I do plan on having available for a downloadable PDF at some point. I just make a video about it, and so, yep, let's get into it, okay? And this is just my practice. Everyone is different, but the way I'm going to explain the cards is pretty consistent on any way that you read the Rider-Waite deck, which is what most of the 78 card tarot decks that you get are based off of. So it applies. I'm going to start with like the most basic beginning, like what is tarot. I have my notes, I'm sorry if I'm looking down. Tarot, at its least magical, it's just a tool for self-reflection. Everything that we see visually daily creates a story in our mind. It literally creates neural pathways in our mind that create a story, that invoke emotion, that hold energy. So using a tool could be helpful for us to sit down, a visual tool, something tangible, sit down and just be with our thoughts and try to process and create new neural pathways at its least magical, okay? What tarot looks like for me, though, which again, each practice is different, is because I do believe that we all are energy, and we in this physical realm have so much physical energy that we are taking up, like it really, radiates from us, that we are able to call it and manipulate it. And we do know that all items hold some energy. It has a little bit of energy radiating from it. So you can use tarot as a tool to connect with divine energy. And energy that's been here a lot longer than we have. Our ancestors, source, divination, Mother Earth, that is so beautiful. We are literally just such a little small speck on what creates life on this earth. So I really do believe that we can tap into that, and we can call that energy for messages that are meant for us to be heard. One thing I do want to dispel is just a couple myths. You do not have to be gifted a deck. If you are feeling called to it, buy a deck. Research it. I'm sorry, oh my god, I thought I was going to sneeze. And find one that really speaks to you. As I mentioned in other videos, I grew up very religious, and I was really scared for a little while to get into tarot. It was, evil, like the way I grew up. And I always thought that you were supposed to be gifted one, if you were really like a fortune teller, you'd be gifted one. It's really not that. Like I said, it's a tool for self-reflection more than anything. If you are trying to tap into your intuition and into energies around you, I definitely think it's a tool for that as well. But it's not like you have to wait for it to come to you. You have power over that. So you don't have to be gifted a deck. You can do one. Oh, speaking of which I'll show my deck here in a little bit. When I was researching mine, I decided between 3 decks. Like I had told my husband, I was like, I really want to get into tarot. I'm going to buy a deck. And I was researching it. I broke it down to 3 decks that I couldn't choose between. And when I showed my family, they all picked the deck that I have, which is the Green Witch deck, which was like my number 1 choice. And it just is funny the way, if you're being called to it, I'm going to summarize. If you're being called to it, get it, okay? You don't have to be gifted it. It's not some magical thing. It's just a practice that you can do. Another myth, it does not define the future. Piggybacking off of that, it does not define the future. Again, I think you can definitely call in energy, and you can sit there and try to work with the environment around us, but it does not define anything. You are there to hear a message, and what you do with it is up to you. Our physical energy, I feel, it's my own practice, is a lot stronger than anything spiritual. Like here on this plane, our energy is always going to override, right? Like humans are going to do what they want to do. So it doesn't define the future. Maybe, it's a good thing to listen to some messages depending on how you set up your practice, but does not define the future. Okay. I'm trying to see. Oh, the last one is each practice is its own on these myths. So there is no right or wrong way to do it. You don't have to knock on the deck 3 times, which we're going to talk about the numerology in tarot, which is kind of like Wiccan based. A lot of, which still is spiritual. The power of 3 is just, you don't have to do that. You don't have to blow on it. You don't have to do any of those kind of things unless you want to. I personally do like sage my deck every once in a while. I have my own practices to just honor the cards and create the energy that I want, but there's no right or wrong way to do it. Like, it is your practice, and that's it. So, how I read. We'll get into that, and then I'll break down this little cheat sheet, which I think will make it really, really easy for you to understand. But, like for me, because we're talking about personal practice, when I read, like I said, I don't cleanse my deck all the time. I actually prefer for my energy to build in the deck and the ancestral energy and all the elements that I bring in. I do consider myself like a green witch. I work with Mother Nature more than anything because I feel like that's the highest energy that we have. It's what we all come from, and it's what we're all going to go back to. So I work with that energy a lot. This chicken, that's their song when they're laying their eggs. But so I will go ahead and usually cleanse the spot that I'm going to use because I'm sorry, I'm leaning in right here. I'm just going to grab all this. I don't read every day. I mean, if that's up to you, how often you want to read, when you feel. Again, because I am a green witch, I try to stay with moon cycles. I feel like that's, that's how we farmed forever. Ancient ancestors really knew the power of the moon, and it does affect it. So that's my own practice. How I read, I will call in the energies. I usually bless all the elements. Depending on the cycle of the moon and what sign we're in, I might call in specific elements. I'll usually put herbs or oils around and cast a circle if I feel need to. I don't always cast a circle. Sometimes I just feel really called to. That's again where like the practice of tarot of your intuition is really important. If I feel called to, I'll cast a circle because I am an air sign, and I've mentioned it before in videos. Breath work has been transformative for me. I'll usually do a little bit of breath work. If I'm reading for someone else, I'll try to call in any ancestral messages for that person. Even if I just have the first name, to just really call in the energy while I'm shuffling the deck and see what jumps out at me. Last little part of that before we get into this, some people pull cards, some shuffle and split and pull the top ones. It depends. I do all of that. I will sometimes wait for the cards to jump out. Sometimes when I'm shuffling, they jump out, and it's just like, that energy is like, these are the cards that you need. Sometimes I just shuffle them, fan them out, and just close my eyes until I feel like the energy in my fingers, like a little bit more of a tingly, and I'll pull that. If I'm reading for someone else, if I can, I will go ahead and have them pull it. So again, each practice is its own. I also will, this is my rabbit hide that I use for my tarot. This is specifically from one of our first rabbits that I tried to do. I like to create a a space filled with crystals. We have skulls. We have wings from different different chickens that I've saved, that I use as like a cleansing. Oh, that feels so good. I also have rabbit feet from our rabbits that sometimes I'll use. That's just how I read. It's all, again, a personal practice. So I'm already 10 minutes in. Let's get into how basically to read tarot, okay? And this is, again, just for the minor arcana, which is temporary. Anything in the minor arcana, which is your cups, swords, pentacles, oh my gosh, and wands. My deck is set up a little differently, so I'm trying to remember the correct names for the suits. They are more about temporary energy. It's like our daily struggle, things that are happening like on a daily for us, you know, where the major is a little bit more divine and possibly messages from, you know, spirit or ancestors, depending on how you look at it. Also, with the minor arcana, it's usually more fast acting because it is daily. It's like that temporary energy. So if you get a lot of them, it may represent things that are going to happen really quick, you know, within like days, weeks, months, versus the major could be more months, years. So we're going to start with pentacles. Pentacles are the earth sign. They represent earth. They represent our physical matters, our grounding, materialistic, things that are very physical. They represent, because they are the earth representing sign, or representing card, they represent earth signs, which are the Taurus, the Virgo, and the Capricorn. When you see those cards, it's usually about using judgment wisely. Because when you think about earth, it's very stable, it's very grounded, and using our judgment, you know, taking pause in some action, you know, really thinking a matter out is probably what that's going to represent. So that way you can create long-term comfort and stability. It is also like a very slow moving even though the minor arcana is daily stuff, it is a slow moving energy. So out of all of that, it really is like suggesting that you take pause and you just think for a minute, you ground, you take a breath. That's pentacles. With swords, that's me. They represent air, which is thoughts. Air is all about thoughts and your breath, your reason. It is actually a very, very fast moving sign. When you think about it again too, when air comes in, it just whoosh, and it feeds water, it feeds fire, it can destroy earth. It's probably one of the fastest moving energies. So if you are seeing the sword cards, it really is like a fast moving energy that's coming through. Because they are air, they represent Aquarius and Gemini and Libra. When you see a lot of them in a spread, depending on how you do it, it's usually time to make a plan. It's usually time to sit with like who you are intuitively and start making a plan with that. It doesn't necessarily need to act on it, even though it is a fast moving energy. It's more time for like self-reflection and figuring out like how you're going to move forward. We're going to go to wands next. Wands represent fire, which fire is your inner passion. It's your creativity. It is ego. It actually does represent a lot of ego, which isn't a bad thing. Ego isn't a bad thing, you know, unless you let it go rampant. It's okay to like represent and identify with our ego. The fire signs are Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius. And when you see those, it's usually time to take action. And that kind of makes sense, right? Like if it's fire for us as humans, it's time to take action. It's time to move. It's time to quench it. It's time to feed it if you need to be, you know, keeping yourself warm. It's definitely a quick moving, take action thing when you see a lot of wands. The last one in the suits is the cups. And the cups represent emotion and intuition and kind of divine fluid movements. Because it's a water representing suit, it talks about listening to your gut, and it is a slower energy. It represents Pisces, Cancers, and Scorpio energy. I think that it's only really important to maybe think about those, what it can represent in astrological signs is when you pull them, and depending on what sign you're in, maybe that can add some more meaning to your story while you're working on your intuition. So when you see